The council chamber on Vorathis Prime stretched wider than any human stadium. Floating platforms held representatives from 47 different alien species, each one more ancient and powerful than humanity could imagine. Commander Ryan Hayes stood on the human platform, his uniform crisp and his posture straight. Beside him, Dr. Kate Morrison clutched her data tablet while Greg Chen reviewed their presentation one last time. This was humanity's third attempt to join the Galactic Council. The first two had been rejected without much discussion. Ryan hoped this time would be different. Humanity had prepared evidence of their achievements, their technological progress, and their desire for peaceful cooperation. The Krethian ambassador rose from his platform. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shimmered like dark emeralds. His yellow eyes fixed on Ryan with something that looked like amusement. "Humans," he said, his voice booming across the chamber. "You return again with your petition. Tell me, how many star systems do you control now? 20? 30? 47 colonies across 22 systems," Ryan answered calmly. The Krethian laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "We control 4,000 systems. The Zarkon Hive controls 6,000. Even the smallest member of this council commands more territory than your entire species." He gestured dismissively. "You are children, playing with toys you barely understand." Kate stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "We may be young, but we've made significant advances in technology." "Our quantum computing systems are primitive," interrupted a Zarkon representative. The insect-like creature clicked its mandibles. "Your ships move slowly through slip space. Your weapons cannot penetrate modern shields. Your medical technology is laughable. What exactly do you offer this council?" Greg tried a different approach. "We offer fresh perspectives, new ideas. Humanity has always excelled at finding creative solutions to difficult problems." The Eldari delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, spoke gently. "Young humans, we do not doubt your potential, but the Council requires more than potential. We require proven strength, advanced technology, and the wisdom that comes with age. Your species has only been traveling among the stars for 120 years. Most of us have been doing so for thousands of years." Ryan felt frustration building in his chest, but kept his face neutral. "We understand we have much to learn. That's why we want to join the Council. To learn from you, to contribute what we can, and to grow alongside the galactic community." The Krethian ambassador leaned forward. "Let me be direct, human. Your military is weak. Your defenses are inadequate. Your colonies on the outer rim are vulnerable. Perhaps you should accept our offer of protection. The Krethian Empire would be happy to establish bases on your worlds, for your safety, of course." The threat was thinly veiled. Ryan understood immediately what protection meant. It meant occupation. It meant losing their independence. "Humanity can defend itself," he said firmly. This caused laughter throughout the chamber. The Krethian shook his head. "Your confidence is amusing. We've seen your warships. They're barely capable of defending against pirates. If a real military force decided to take your worlds, you would fall within weeks." Kate noticed something strange during the discussion. When the Krethian mentioned military force, several other delegates exchanged quick glances. The Eldari representative's crystalline form flickered slightly. A delegate from the Vormach collective seemed to shift uncomfortably. Something unspoken passed between them, something related to a phrase she'd heard, "the lower dimensions." The council took a vote. The result was unanimous. Humanity's petition was denied. The Krethian ambassador suggested they return in another century, when you've had time to mature as a species. His tone made it clear he didn't expect humanity to survive that long as an independent civilization. Ryan thanked the council for their time, maintaining his dignity despite the rejection. As the human delegation walked back to their ship, Kate kept thinking about those exchanged glances. "Did you notice how they reacted when dimensions were mentioned?" she asked quietly. "I noticed," Ryan said. Greg was already taking notes, documenting everything for their report to Earth Command. Their ship, the Horizon's Edge, waited in the orbital dock. It was a good ship, equipped with humanity's best technology. But next to the massive vessels of the other species, it looked small and fragile. The crew welcomed them back with sympathy in their eyes. Everyone had watched the council session on the ship's displays. As Ryan settled into the captain's chair, his communication console blinked with an incoming message. It was encrypted with the highest level of security, marked Priority Alpha. Ryan's fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. The message contained only 2 words, but they changed everything. Protocol 7. Ryan's blood ran cold. He'd been briefed about Protocol 7 when he'd received this command. It was the contingency plan, the last resort, the secret that humanity had kept hidden from the galaxy for 20 years. He'd hoped they would never need to activate it. Kate saw his expression change. "Ryan, what is it?" He closed the message quickly. "Get us back to Earth. Maximum speed." He turned to the navigation officer. "Plot a direct course. Don't stop for anything." As the Horizon's Edge pulled away from Varathis Prime, Ryan looked back at the planet where humanity had been rejected and mocked. The Krethian Empire thought humans were weak. The Council thought they were children. They had no idea what humanity had been building in secret, hidden away where no alien sensors could detect it. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had explored places the elder races had declared forbidden. They had gone deeper into the dimensions of reality than anyone else dared. And they had found something there. Something powerful. Something waiting. Ryan activated his personal log and began recording. "Commander Ryan Hayes reporting. The Council has rejected our petition. Krethian threats suggest military action is imminent. Earth Command has activated Protocol 7. We're returning home immediately." He paused, then added quietly, "May God help us all." 3 weeks passed after the Council meeting. Captain Alex Turner was reviewing supply reports on the new Boston colony when the alarms started screaming. His coffee mug hit the floor and shattered as he jumped to his feet. The defense station's main screen showed what every human had feared but hoped would never come. Krethian warships were dropping out of slipspace, not just a few ships, dozens of them. Their dark green hulls blotted out the stars as they moved into attack formation around the colony. "Battle stations!" Alex shouted into the comm system. "All civilian ships evacuate immediately. Military vessels form defensive perimeter." The response was fast, but not fast enough. The Krethians had planned this perfectly. Alex watched in horror as similar reports flooded in from 11 other human colonies. They were hitting everywhere at once. This wasn't a raid. This was an invasion. The first Krethian shots tore through New Boston's orbital defense platforms like paper. Human ships returned fire, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy shields. The Krethians had phase shift technology that made their shields adapt to whatever hit them. Conventional weapons were almost useless. Alex commanded 5 destroyers and 2 cruisers. He threw everything he had at the invaders. For 20 minutes, the battle raged. Then the Krethian flagship fired its main weapon. The beam cut through the cruiser Liberty like it wasn't there. 800 crew members died in seconds. "Fall back," Alex ordered. "Protect the evacuation transports." On the colony surface, Claire Martinez ran through the streets, helping people reach the underground shelters. She was a civil engineer, not a soldier, but right now everyone had to fight or help. Explosions lit up the sky as Krethian landing craft broke through the atmosphere. "This way!" she shouted to a group of families. "The tunnels will protect you!" Krethian soldiers poured out of their landing craft. They were huge, heavily armed, and showed no mercy. Claire saw them firing on civilians who couldn't reach shelter in time. Rage filled her chest, but she kept moving, kept saving everyone she could. In orbit, Alex made a desperate decision. He rammed his destroyer into a Krethian troop transport. The collision destroyed both ships, but it bought time for 3 evacuation vessels to escape. Alex managed to reach an escape pod, but he knew the battle was lost. New Boston was falling. Back on Earth, Admiral Ben Cooper watched the disaster unfold in the command center. The holographic display showed red markers appearing across human space. 6 colonies had already fallen. 2 more were under heavy attack. The death toll was rising every minute. "Get me every ship we have," Ben ordered. "I don't care if they're in port for repairs. I don't care if they're scientific vessels. Everything that can fight needs to move now." Dr. Lisa Park stood beside him, her face pale. She was a civilian scientist, but she knew more about humanity's secret project than almost anyone. "Admiral, we need to consider Protocol 7. "I know," Ben said grimly. Commander Kyle Ross entered the room. He was head of Black Operations, the man responsible for humanity's most classified programs. "Admiral, if we're discussing what I think we're discussing, I need to brief you on the current status." They moved to a secure conference room. Kyle activated a holographic display that showed something most humans didn't know existed. A schematic of a ship, but not just any ship. "The Sovereign," Kyle said quietly. "Current status, operational and standing by in the 7th dimension." Lisa took over the explanation. "Most species use slip space for faster-than-light travel. That's the 4th dimension. Some ancient races experimented with the 5th and 6th dimensions, but those are unstable and dangerous. Everyone considered the 7th dimension impossible to access." "But we did it," Ben said. "We did it," Lisa confirmed. 50 years of research that we kept completely secret from the galaxy. The 7th dimension exists outside normal space-time. A ship there is invisible and untouchable. It doesn't exist in our reality. Kyle pointed to specifications on the display. "The Sovereign has been there for 2 years, in a stable orbit around Earth's sun. Crew of 5,000, fully armed and equipped. Commanded by Captain Eric Palmer. The ship was designed as our insurance policy. If humanity ever faced extinction, we could bring it back." Ben looked at the casualty reports still coming in. 8 million dead, 12 million wounded. 4 colonies completely occupied. The Krethians weren't just invading. They were making an example of humanity. "Activate Protocol 7, Ben ordered. "Bring the Sovereign home." Kyle nodded and began the activation sequence. It required multiple authentication codes from different people. Lisa provided hers, confirming the scientific necessity. Ben provided his command authorization. Within minutes, the message was transmitted using quantum communication that couldn't be intercepted. In the 7th dimension, Captain Eric Palmer received the signal aboard the Sovereign. He was a veteran of 30 years, gray-haired and calm under pressure. He'd spent the last 2 years in this strange place between realities, waiting for a day he'd hoped would never come. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's intercom. "We have received activation orders. Protocol 7 is now in effect. We are returning to normal space. Everyone to battle stations. This is not a drill." His executive officer, Lieutenant Nicole Bradley, began the transition procedures. "Sir, the emergence process will take 6 hours. We have to phase through each dimensional layer carefully." "I know," Eric said. "Let's just hope humanity can hold on that long." The chief engineer, Brandon Park, monitored the ship's systems as they began the delicate process. Bringing a ship from the 7th dimension back to normal reality was incredibly dangerous. One mistake and the Sovereign would tear itself apart. On New Boston, Claire and her resistance fighters watched Krethian soldiers take control of the streets. They'd managed to save thousands of people in the underground tunnels, but they couldn't hide forever. Food and water would run out in days. "We need help," one of the resistance members said. "Where's the military? Where's Earth?" Claire didn't have an answer. She just hoped someone was coming. Anyone. In the command center, Ben watched the clock. 6 hours until the Sovereign could emerge. 6 hours during which more colonies would fall, more people would die. He'd given the order that would change everything. Humanity had kept its greatest secret for 20 years. In 6 hours, the entire galaxy would know what humans had been hiding. The question was whether they'd be able to use it in time. Commander Ryan Hayes had survived the battle at New Boston by pure luck. His ship had been damaged, but not destroyed. Now he coordinated with scattered human forces across 3 star systems, trying to organize some kind of defense. The Krethians were winning everywhere. Then he received a classified briefing that made him stop breathing for a moment. Protocol 7, the Sovereign, the 7th dimension. Everything he'd been told was impossible was actually real. "How long have we had this?" he asked Admiral Ben Cooper over the secure channel. 20 years, Ben answered. Built in secret, hidden in a place where no alien could detect it. We always knew the galaxy might turn on us someday. Ryan thought about all the times humanity had been laughed at, dismissed, told they were too weak to matter. And the whole time, they'd been building something that would terrify the elder races. When will it arrive? It's transitioning now, another 4 hours. 4 hours. Ryan looked at his tactical display. 2 more colonies had fallen in the last hour. The Krethians were unstoppable. Their phase shift shields adapted to every weapon humanity threw at them. Human ships were being destroyed dozens at a time. On the Sovereign, Captain Eric Palmer watched the dimensional readings carefully. The ship was passing through the 6th dimension now, that unstable layer of reality that had destroyed so many test probes before they'd found the 7th. The hull groaned under stresses that shouldn't exist. Reality itself seemed to push back against their presence. "Hull integrity at 85%, reported Lieutenant Nicole Bradley. "We're through the worst of it, sir." Eric allowed himself a small breath of relief. They were past the most dangerous part. Now they just had to phase through the 5th dimension, then normal space-time. "How long?" 3 hours. 40 minutes to full emergence. In the engineering section, Brandon Park monitored power flow to the dimensional phase generators. These machines allowed the ship to exist partially in multiple dimensions at once. No other species had this technology. The elder races had tried thousands of years ago and given up after too many disasters. Humans had succeeded because they'd approached it differently. They hadn't tried to force their way between dimensions. They'd learned to flow with them, like swimming in a current instead of fighting against it. It had taken decades to figure out, but they'd done it. The Krethian fleet besieging Mars had no idea what was about to happen. Admiral Vector commanded 300 warships in orbit around humanity's 4th planet. He was planning the final assault on the orbital cities when his sensor officer reported something strange. "Sir, we're detecting a spatial anomaly, large scale. I've never seen readings like this." Vector studied the data. It looked like something was pushing its way into normal space from somewhere else. But that was impossible. Nothing could do that. Probably just interference from human jamming systems. Ignore it and focus on... The space between Mars and its moon seemed to shimmer. Colors that didn't exist in normal reality flickered and danced. Then something appeared. Something massive. The Sovereign phased into existence like a ghost becoming solid. The ship was enormous, dwarfing even the largest Krethian dreadnought. Its hull had a strange quality, as if it wasn't entirely present, as if part of it still existed somewhere else. Running lights along its surface pulsed with colors that hurt to look at directly. "What is that?" Vector whispered. His communication officer was receiving signals. "Sir, they're hailing us on all frequencies, broadcasting to every ship in the system. Put it through." Eric Palmer's face appeared on every display in every ship throughout the Mars system. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. This is Captain Eric Palmer of the Earth Sovereignty Ship Sovereign. Krathian forces, you have made war on humanity. You believed we were weak. You believed we had nothing that could challenge you. Eric paused, letting his words sink in. You were wrong. This ship operates on principles your scientists declared impossible. It comes from a place your ancient ones forbade exploration of. We are here to end this invasion. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Vector felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. He was looking at technology that shouldn't exist, but pride and training took over. Human vessel, you are outnumbered 300 to 1. Surrender now and we will show mercy. We warned you, Eric said simply. Then he cut the communication. The Sovereign's weapons came online. They didn't fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend around Krathian ships. The weapons struck from the 7th dimension, bypassing shields and armor entirely. Where the dimensional beams touched Krathian vessels, their power cores simply stopped working. Systems failed. Ships went dark and dead. 10 Krathian warships disabled in 10 seconds. Vector screamed orders. All ships, fire everything! Destroy that vessel! 300 ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, kinetic rounds, everything the Krathian military had poured toward the Sovereign. For a moment, the space around the human ship turned into pure light and destruction. Then the light faded. The Sovereign was untouched, completely undamaged. Nicole explained what was happening to Eric, though he already knew. They're firing on our position, but we're shifting the ship partially into the 7th dimension at the moment of impact. Their weapons passed through empty space where we were a microsecond before. The Krathians couldn't hurt them, couldn't touch them. The Sovereign existed in multiple dimensions at once. It was there and not there, solid and ghost-like. It was the most advanced weapon humanity had ever created, and it was just getting started. Eric gave new orders. Target their command ships, disable only. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to stop an invasion. The Sovereign moved through the Krathian fleet like a shark through small fish. Every shot it fired disabled another enemy vessel. The Krathians tried everything. They tried ramming the ship, but it phased out of reality and let them pass through. They tried using their most powerful weapons, but nothing worked. Within 30 minutes, the Krathian fleet at Mars was completely disabled. 300 warships floating dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. Ryan Hayes watched from his position near Jupiter. He'd been coordinating human forces for a counterattack, but he didn't need to now. The Sovereign had done in half an hour what humanity's entire fleet couldn't do in weeks. All human forces, Eric broadcasted, begin recovery operations. Secure the disabled enemy vessels. Send medical teams to help their wounded. We're not monsters. On Earth, Ben Cooper watched the battle with tears in his eyes. 20 years of secret development. 2 decades of hiding the truth from the galaxy, and it had all been worth it. Humanity had its shield, its sword, its proof that they couldn't be pushed around anymore. But Lisa Parks saw something concerning in the sensor data. Admiral, the Sovereign's presence is creating dimensional instabilities. The longer it stays in normal space, the worse it gets. How long do we have? Ben asked. 96 hours before the instabilities become dangerous. After that, we risk tearing holes between dimensions. Ben nodded. They had 4 days to end this war. 4 days before their ultimate weapon had to disappear again. News of the Battle of Mars spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species with monitoring stations had watched the impossible happen. A human ship had appeared from nowhere and destroyed a Krathian fleet without taking a single hit. The recordings were played over and over, analyzed by military experts who couldn't believe what they were seeing. On Vorathis Prime, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The Eldari representative's crystalline form flickered with agitation. They weaponized the 7th dimension. The humans actually did it. That's impossible, the Zarkon delegate insisted. The lower dimensions cannot be accessed safely. Everyone knows this. Apparently, humans didn't read that manual, another delegate said quietly. The Krethian ambassador was absent. He'd received urgent orders to return home immediately. The Krethian emperor was furious and terrified in equal measure. No one had hurt his fleets like this in 300 years. Back in human space, the sovereign led a coordinated counterattack. Ryan Hayes, promoted to admiral by emergency decree, commanded the human fleet that followed behind. The strategy was simple. The sovereign would disable enemy ships, and human forces would secure them. At New Boston Colony, Claire Martinez and her resistance fighters heard the news first with disbelief, then with joy. A human warship was coming, a ship that could beat the Krethians. They just had to hold on a little longer. The Krethian occupation forces on New Boston received orders to execute civilian hostages as a warning to Earth. Their commander, a brutal officer named Krektos, lined up 50 humans in the central square. Claire watched from hiding, her heart breaking. She wanted to do something, anything, but her small group of fighters couldn't stop what was about to happen. Then the sky opened up. The Sovereign dropped out of slipspace directly above the city. It was so large it blocked out the sun, casting a shadow over everything. The ship's weapons didn't fire at the city. Instead, dimensional beams touched each Krethian soldier with surgical precision. Their weapons simply stopped working. Their armor locked up. They couldn't move. Landing craft descended from the Sovereign, and human marines poured out. Within minutes, they'd secured the city. The hostages were saved. Krektos and his troops were captured without a single civilian casualty. Claire emerged from hiding, tears streaming down her face. She watched the human soldiers move through the streets, freeing her people. One of the Marines stopped next to her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I am now," she whispered. "I am now." Over the next 48 hours, the Sovereign visited every occupied colony. The pattern was the same everywhere. The ship would appear, disable the Krethian forces, and human troops would secure the area. No civilian deaths, no destruction of cities. Just clean, precise military action. But the Krethian Empire wasn't ready to surrender. Their emperor, a proud ruler named Zarkoth, had never lost a war. He refused to accept defeat from what he still considered an inferior species. He recalled every fleet from across his empire. 4,000 warships converged on the Krethian homeworld, preparing for a final defense. Lieutenant Nicole Bradley reported the enemy buildup to Eric Palmer. "Sir, they're massing everything they have. If we attack the homeworld, it'll be a bloodbath. Even with our advantages, we'll have to destroy thousands of ships." Eric studied the tactical display. He could win that battle. The Sovereign was untouchable, but winning would mean killing hundreds of thousands of Krethian crew members. That wasn't what humanity wanted. They didn't want to become monsters. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Cooper and Admiral Hayes," Eric said. Minutes later, the three men were in a virtual conference. Ryan spoke first. "The Krethians won't surrender. Their pride won't allow it. We need to do something that breaks their will to fight without slaughtering them." Lisa Park joined the conference. She'd been studying the Sovereign's capabilities. "Captain Palmer, theoretically, you could use the dimensional fields not as weapons, but as transport. You could phase objects into the 7th dimension without destroying them." "Phase them where?" Eric asked. "Nowhere. Everywhere. The 7th dimension has no fixed locations. Objects placed there just drift. They'd be intact, alive, but completely unable to interact with normal space, ever." Ben Cooper understood immediately. "We don't destroy their military. We make it disappear." "Exactly," Lisa said. "No casualties, no deaths, but their fleets, their shipyards, their military base is all gone. They'd be defenseless, but alive." Ryan considered the ethics of it. Trapping people in another dimension was terrifying. But was it worse than killing them? We'd need to give them a chance to evacuate first. Agreed, Eric said. We broadcast a warning, give them 12 hours to remove all personnel from military installations, then we make those installations vanish. The plan was approved. The Sovereign jumped to Krethian space along with the entire human fleet. Eric broadcast his message on all frequencies, ensuring the Emperor and every Krethian citizen heard it. People of the Krethian Empire, this is Captain Eric Palmer. We do not wish to kill you. We do not seek to conquer you, but your Emperor has made war on humanity, and that war ends now. You have 12 hours to evacuate all military vessels, shipyards, weapon platforms, and military bases. Anyone who remains will not be harmed, but they will be placed somewhere they can never threaten another species again. This is your only warning. Emperor Zarkoth refused to give the evacuation order. He called it a bluff. He believed humans were too soft to follow through. His military commanders disagreed. They'd seen what the Sovereign could do. They began evacuating without orders, choosing life over pride. 12 hours passed. 80% of Krethian military personnel had evacuated. 20% remained, either out of loyalty to their emperor or because they didn't believe the threat was real. Eric gave the order he'd hoped he wouldn't have to give. Execute the ghosting maneuver. The Sovereign released dimensional fields across Krethian space. The fields expanded, touching every military installation within light years. Warships, shipyards, weapon platforms, military academies, everything connected to the Krethian war machine began to shimmer. Colors that didn't belong in normal space flickered around them. Then they vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. Phased into the seventh dimension where they would drift forever, existing but unable to touch or affect the normal universe. The Krethians who'd stayed with their ships found themselves alive, but trapped in a place between realities. In less than 2 hours, the Krethian Empire lost 90% of its military capability without a shot fired. Their homeworld was defenseless. Their colonies were unprotected. And the human fleet, along with the impossible ship that had made it all happen, waited in orbit. Emperor Zarkoth stared at his displays, watching his empire crumble. He'd ruled for 60 years, he'd conquered 30 species, and now he'd been defeated by the species everyone had laughed at. He opened a communication channel to the Sovereign. When Eric's face appeared, the Emperor's voice was hollow. "What are your terms?" The terms of surrender were simple and harsh. The Krethian Empire would release all occupied territories. They would pay reparations to humanity for the invasion. Their military would be limited to defensive forces only, monitored by independent observers. Any violation would result in more installations being ghosted into the seventh dimension. Emperor Zarkoth signed the treaty with shaking hands. His empire had been neutered in a matter of days by a species he'd called primitive. The humiliation burned, but he was wise enough to know when he'd lost completely. Eric Palmer had 18 hours left before the Sovereign had to return to the seventh dimension. The dimensional instabilities were growing. Lisa Park's calculations showed that if the ship stayed much longer, it would tear holes in space-time that could endanger the entire star system. Before leaving, Eric broadcast one final message, not just to the Krethians, but to the entire galaxy. Every species heard his words. "This is Captain Eric Palmer of the Sovereign. Humanity came to your council seeking friendship and cooperation. We were rejected, we were mocked, we were told we were too weak, too young, too primitive to matter. Then, when we refused to surrender our independence, we were invaded." He paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds. "We built the Sovereign not because we wanted to conquer anyone. We built it because we learned a hard lesson from our own history. Peace doesn't come from being weak. Peace comes from being strong enough that no one dares attack you. We hoped we'd never need to prove this. But you forced our hand." Eric's expression hardened. Let today's event serve as a lesson to every civilization watching. Humanity will not be bullied. We will not be conquered. We will not surrender our freedom to anyone. The Sovereign returns to the seventh dimension now, but we have not abandoned this technology. We're building more ships, and they will remain watching, unseen, from a place you cannot detect or attack. The transmission ended. The Sovereign began its ascent back through the dimensions. Brandon Park monitored the process carefully, ensuring the ship phased out safely. Within an hour, the massive vessel shimmered and vanished from normal space, returning to its hidden vigil in the seventh dimension. Ryan Hayes watched it disappear from the bridge of his ship. Part of him wished it could stay, but he understood why it couldn't. The technology was too dangerous to use casually. It had to remain a deterrent, a last resort, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity wasn't defenseless. 6 months passed. The galaxy slowly adjusted to a new reality. Humanity wasn't a joke anymore. They weren't the weak newcomers that everyone could push around. They were a power that had demonstrated the ability to make entire fleets disappear. The Galactic Council held another vote on humanity's membership petition. This time, every delegate voted yes. Even the Krethian ambassador, bitter and defeated, cast his vote in favor. There was no choice. Refusing humanity now would be suicide. Ryan Hayes arrived at Varathis Prime as humanity's permanent representative. The reception was very different from his last visit. Delegates approached him with respect, some with fear, others with genuine interest in cooperation. No one laughed, no one made threats. The Eldari representative approached Ryan privately after the formal session. Its crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions. Admiral Hayes, I must tell you something. The elder races experimented with the lower dimensions thousands of years ago. It nearly destroyed the galaxy. We've forbidden this research ever since because we feared what would happen if such power was unleashed again. Ryan listened carefully. This was important information. What happened? War. Genocide. Entire star systems erased from existence. The Cataclysm Wars almost ended all life in this galaxy. We barely survived. When we detected what your species was doing, we tried to discourage you through ridicule and exclusion. We hoped you'd give up the research. But we didn't, Ryan said. No, you persisted. And now you've achieved what we abandoned as too dangerous. The Eldari paused. I want to ask you something. Will you promise to only use this technology in defense? Will you promise never to become what we almost became? Ryan thought about the question carefully. He couldn't make promises for all of humanity's future. No one could. But he could speak to their intentions now. We've seen what happens when power is misused. Our own history taught us that lesson many times. The Sovereign exists to protect, not to conquer. We have no interest in empire building. We just want to be left alone to live in peace. I hope you always feel that way, the Eldari said quietly. Because if humanity ever chooses conquest, no force in this galaxy could stop you. Back on Earth, Kate Morrison continued her research into the seventh dimension. But now she had help. Scientists from the Eldari civilization, after thousands of years of fear, were willing to share their ancient knowledge. Together, they worked carefully, always aware of the dangers. 3 sister ships to the Sovereign were under construction in hidden facilities. Humanity was ensuring they'd never be caught unprepared again. But the construction was careful, thoughtful, monitored by both human and alien observers to ensure the technology wasn't being weaponized beyond defensive needs. Claire Martinez returned to New Boston. The colony was rebuilding. Memorials were erected for those who died during the invasion. But there was also hope. The city was coming back to life, stronger than before. Claire had been offered a position in the resistance organization that was being formalized into a colonial defense force. She accepted. She never wanted to feel that helpless again. Captain Alex Turner survived the war and was given command of a new ship, the Defiance. It was equipped with improved shields and weapons based on technology that humanity had been developing in secret alongside the Sovereign Project. Human ships would never be pushovers again. In the seventh dimension, Eric Palmer and his crew maintained their vigil. Life aboard the Sovereign was strange. Time moved differently in this place between realities. The crew aged slower than people in normal space. They watched over humanity from a position outside the universe itself. Lieutenant Nicole Bradley asked Eric what he thought about their mission. He considered the question while looking at the strange colors of the seventh dimension outside their viewports. "We're insurance," he said finally. "We're the reminder that humanity can defend itself. We're the sword that stays sheathed until absolutely necessary. I hope we never have to emerge again. But if we do, we'll be ready." Brandon Park kept the ship's systems running perfectly. The Sovereign was a masterpiece of engineering, but it required constant maintenance. Living partially outside reality put stresses on equipment that normal ships never experienced. He didn't mind. This was his life's work, and he took pride in it. News from normal space filtered into the seventh dimension through quantum communication. Humanity was thriving. Trade agreements were being signed with species that had ignored them before. Cultural exchanges were happening. Human scientists were sharing knowledge with alien researchers while learning from civilizations thousands of years older. But there were also warnings. Some species resented humanity's sudden rise to power. Some feared them. Some plotted quietly, looking for ways to counter the seventh dimension technology. Humanity remained vigilant. Ryan stood before the Galactic Council 1 year after the invasion. He'd been asked to give a report on humanity's activities and intentions. He spoke honestly. "We don't seek to dominate anyone. We don't want an empire. We just want to exist freely, to grow, to learn, and to contribute to the galactic community. The Sovereign and its sister ships exist purely as defensive measures. We will never use them for conquest or aggression." He paused, making eye contact with every delegate. "But make no mistake. If anyone attacks humanity, if anyone threatens our worlds or our people, we will respond. We came from the seventh dimension once. We can do it again anytime we choose. We prefer friendship. But we're prepared for war." The Council accepted his statement. There were no objections. Humanity had earned its place not through age or tradition, but through demonstrated capability. They'd proven they couldn't be pushed around. As Ryan left the council chamber, he looked back at where he'd stood a year ago, being mocked and rejected. So much had changed. Humanity had gone from being the galaxy's joke to being one of its most respected and feared powers. He smiled slightly. They'd laughed at humanity. They'd dismissed human technology and military might as primitive and worthless. They'd threatened and invaded, confident in their superiority. And then the Sovereign had surfaced from the seventh dimension. Everything had changed in that moment. The galaxy had learned that humanity's apparent weakness had been hiding incredible strength. They'd learned that humans didn't give up, didn't surrender, and didn't stop pushing boundaries just because others said something was impossible. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again.